What do you mean by disenchanted?
Okay.
Like, what is can you define enchantment?
Okay.
And then disenchantment, and then answer the next question.
Right, of course. Okay, so what he was talking about in his book was the idea that in a previous time, in Middle Ages, for example, there was the idea that man lived in a spiritual world. And there were times when there was the holy, and then there was the profane times as well. There were, festival times, and there were daily life times. But even within daily life, it depended on the spiritual aspect to withhold it and sustain it. And so even coming into church, there was a mystical side of it. And later on, as I've been thinking this through and observing in the Catholic Church, for example, there's a lot of mystics around. I was talking with a seminary professor from, I want to say from Houston, Catholic, one that met at a conference in Paris. And she was talking about this as well, how within the Catholic Church, there is sometimes a feeling of, there's this show that's going on or these symbols, but the essence of what's behind them is gone. And so that's more of how it hit me, of this idea of the reality of the Spirit. There's been, especially in our movement, and I think is one of my favorite parts of the Calvary Chapel movement, has always been the way that the Spirit moves and almost the palpable presence of the Spirit. And yet there is at times a certain dryness or such a methodology to where it's not so palpable anymore. Maybe it's more of our liturgy. Maybe it's more of our cultural awareness. Maybe it's a lot of other things rather than that awe-inspired feeling of the presence of God. And so this isn't really what Charles Taylor was talking about, but this is how it reverberated with my soul.
Okay.